Hello, guys, and welcome to episode 56 of What If Civilization Started Over. In the last episode, we saw a major war break out over here. With a lot of ideology changing going on. Um, the orange team down here got jumped. We see all of these two countries became puppet states. And I think that was pretty much it. Some more ideology change around the world. Um, especially in one big country, though. Being this purple, like the Lake Baikal country. Um, but let's get started with this episode, which will start off right up where we had just talked about. So, um, Lake Baikal had just gotten a new fascist government, and that fascist government is also very expansionist. And the first country they're going after is not going to be one of these two communist countries, but instead this democratic one. So they send their forces in very quickly. But not just one, but two nations here once had land in this region. Actually, Korea didn't. This is all Chinese. But anyway, Korea will still get involved in this war. Um, China, however, is going to refrain from joining. But once the capital's captured by Korea, the country is pretty quickly split into two. However, Lake Baikal does not want to give any of this land over to Korea. In fact, they wanted to take even more land from Korea. They wanted like all of this up here and like this down here too. But obviously they didn't get that. So, we'll take a look at what the peace treaty for this really quick war will look like. All right. So here we have the peace treaty. Very simple. Korea will be getting this out here. All these little bits stick out. And that means the rest of it will all go over to uh Lake Baikal. Alright. And that'll also mean we get rid of this capital and we get rid of their ideology thingy here. Alright. So that's one less country on the map. Alright. But now we are going to move over. Uh, Actually, we'll start off with over here. As well, we have two events going on. They're both pretty big-ish. One's a lot bigger than the other. The first one is we have another country switching ideologies over here. They become a communist nation, and that country is this orange team here. However, we do see another thing taking effect. America will become less of a full democracy and becomes a flawed democracy. So that's pretty big. Um, and then the other big event over here is this dark blue country here. They get they purchase Newfoundland from the orange team, which um maybe that's a good thing. I mean, that's a good thing for them. They're kind of starting up like a small little like, colony kind of stuff, even though it's not really colonies. And Caribbean definitely has that. Going much better. All right. Now we're gonna talk to a country we're gonna go to a country that we've talked about recently, but haven't actually done anything with. and that's Sumatra. They're finally going to be going to war. And with who, you ask? Well, they don't border this nation. I do believe they used to. Yeah, they used to. Um, but that nation is South China, so they send their ships up South China. South China is pretty weak right now. Um, they're not really in a spot for fighting. So we see the first landing from Sumatra will take place right here. However, they also move out over into Taiwan, and they have one big reason for doing this. If we were to take a look at power rankings right now, well, Sumatra has had lost the number one spot. Um, it ended up going to Caribbean in the last like meeting or something that they had about it. Um, but yeah, so Sumatra is here. They do this mainly to show, like, we are not to be misread with. We are still the strongest country in the world. Although taking on South China isn't much of a feat until they make the landing out here in Hawaii. This is their major feat. They do this to prove their navy is completely capable, and well, it's enough to close the gap a lot between them and Caribbean. But it's still they still remain in second, so they keep their military on watch. But we'll take a look at what the peace treaty for this will look like. All right, so here we have the peace treaty for this war. We'll go over here as Sumatra does fully annex Hawaii. But then there's another. No. All right, but then we come over here. South China here is fully annexed, and you may be wondering, wait, why didn't I just show this as the full thing? Well, maybe you did see because it's more obvious than I thought. Also, um, that island is supposed to be South Chinese. Korean Korea doesn't have any outside islands other than this one right here and over here. But like, yeah. But coming down here to Vietnam, um, you may want the you're probably wondering why Sumatra just got all of this land out of Vietnam. Well, that is because it turned out that Vietnam had tried supplying South China, but a couple of their ships were captured um by Sumatra, and Sumatra was not happy about it. So during the peace treaty, Vietnam had also been invited to it, and they basically said, so like if you want these ships back, you're gonna give us all of this land down here. Otherwise, we'll just take over your entire nation because we are much stronger than you, and you know this. So Vietnam reluctantly, very reluctantly, will give up this southern territory here, and obviously South China was fully annexed. So bye bye to that capital. But also we say bye bye to this capital here as they just slightly relocate their capital. They move it down into this major city here. This is, I'm definitely not doing this just to make it so it makes sense for me calling them Sumatra. But yeah, so they do that, and their military is a lot less active now. All right, but now we're gonna head up to the Swiss. So recently they had a very major event happen to them. Other than all of the wars they've been going on. Well, it's not just happening to them. So, they're fascist. But, some people inside their territory are not happy that they are fascist. And well, they're starting to get genocided. Um, People who speak out against the government, militaries will go in, militaries go into that city, take people, and they they're sent over into here, and over here there is a big camp, and eventually the Adriatic Union found out about this, and now the whole world has found out about this, and people are not happy with with these guys. But yeah, so well, they're not happy. And it starts to show a lot as we see not one, not two, but three separate rebellions will start up in the Swiss territory. The first one will be this kind of orangey color. I have too much of this color though. Actually, it'll be. I'm gonna get the colors back, but the blue country that used to be right here, that's the first. This is the first one that rebels out. And the Swiss thought they were safe with moving their capital right here. So this is the first rebellion to pop up. The second one happens to be over in North France. And the third one is, well, you probably guessed it, it is over here kind of by where this pink Germany once was. But one notable thing about all of these rebellions, they're led by a communist. All of these rebellions are led by communist leaders. Um, this one will capture this this Italian major city, and they will have it as their capital. North France has theirs. Germany over here has theirs. Or I guess these guys are uh, Bavaria. These guys are Bavaria. There. But yeah. So a lot of rebellions, and well, taking a look at alliances, these guys happen to be in an alliance. Yeah, this alliance, they know that these rebellions can easily spread right into their territory. Most of them have one of the rebellions on their border, and they do not want to risk it. So what they do is they say, "Yep, you're on your own." And it does not take very long at all before the capital is stormed by the blue team over here, and the essentially dictator of the Swiss country is he's beheaded in the public using a guillotine. So yeah, not very fun for him. But despite seeing this, while these rebellions are actively going on, um, and against a fascist government, I might add, the Irish switch to fascism. Eh, They didn't they don't get nearly the same like everyone hates us from or everyone hates this government from the Swiss or like as the Swiss do, but like um it instantly makes them a bit less stable. But we'll see how this will evolve later. Anyway, blue with this rebellion capturing the capital, we see something else kind of odd-ish happening. Um, these rebellions all recognize they have one goal in mind, which is insert communism in this country, or like make the Swiss fat or communist instead of fascist. And once the three of them all connect up, we see them decide to just like kind of unite together. They unite under this blue one. Sure. But now that they are united, they were they all work together, and they just kind of spread around the border. This major city is like the biggest for like supporting the fascist government, so it does hold on a bit longer. It also has many military strongholds here, but ones over in this region will fall much easier. And this is essentially the new capital for the Swiss until it's also eventually taken by the communists, and we see the Swiss end up surrendering. And well, I can also just kind of just show this peace treaty here because all it is a switch to government. There are no land gains by any other country. Uh, these guys just become communists now. But they oddly stay in the Diamond Alliance for around 4 days until they are kicked out by by the other members, and Ireland is like the new leader of this alliance. They are also kicked out of the Economic Alliance, but happen to have a certain they ha- look they happen to have a history with a lot of the Square Alliance, so they're not really accepted by the Square Alliance. So they're kind of just on their own now. But we're just gonna move a little bit out here. We have we'll also turn on this layer because despite also seeing the fascist versus communist stuff that's going on over here, um, yet it's the radical ideologies begin spreading a lot more rapidly. And the first country to switch in the Holy See Empire happens to be Caspia. But there is a certain country who hates Caspia, and communism and fascism, they pretty much always hate each other, except for in one very weird case right here. But Caucasia becomes fascist too. Everyone else, as of right now, remains a democratic nation, but there is going to be more ideologies switching there. However, we are going to stay on the topic of alliances, but we're going to talk about economic alliances. We see a similar designed economic alliance to the Pentagon alliance over here. In fact, yeah, we'll just do the Pentagon Economic Alliance. However, um, it's not really between the Pentagon members. It started off in the North, and I don't want to call it the North American Trade Organization. All right. I don't know. I don't know. But it begins off with just these four countries, but the next country to join it happens to be the cyan Canada, followed by the pink Canada over here. So, yeah. All right. But we're just going to move on to one last country. One last big event. Caribbean will declare war on Peru. However, Peru is in the Circle Alliance. And if we look at the power rankings, two of the Circle Alliance members are in the top or in the top 10 even, I think. No, top 20 though. 17th and 8th. However, Caribbean is number 2 or number 1 now. And this gap here still remains ish. It's a lot closer. Um but it is indeed still there. And then there's also this gap down here. So even with these two's combined strength, and then all of the rest of the Circle Alliance, it's a very close. It's going to be a very close fight. But we'll take we'll see what that looks like in the next episode. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.